And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
The Liberty Podcast is brought to you by Proven Arms and Outfitters, specializing in rifles, pistols, tactical gear, and more. Learn more at ProvenOutfitters.com.
We stand on a lonely, windswept point on the northern shore of France. The air is soft, but 40 years ago at this moment, the air was dense with smoke and the cries of men, and the air was filled with the crack of rifle fire and the roar of cannon. At dawn on the morning of the 6th of June, 1944, 225 Rangers jumped off the British landing craft and ran to the bottom of these cliffs. Their mission was one of the most difficult and daring of the invasion: to climb these sheer and desolate cliffs and take out the enemy guns. The Allies had been told that some of the mightiest of these guns were here, and they would be trained on the beaches to stop the Allied advance. The Rangers looked up and saw the enemy soldiers at the edge of the cliffs shooting down at them with machine guns and throwing grenades, and the American Rangers began to climb. And behind me is a memorial that symbolizes the Ranger daggers that were thrust into the top of these cliffs, and before me are the men who put them there. These are the boys of Pointe de Hope. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are the champions who helped free a continent. And these are the heroes who helped end a war. The men of Normandy had faith that what they were doing was right, faith that they fought for all humanity, faith that a just God would grant them mercy on this beachhead or on the next. It was the deep knowledge, and pray God we have not lost it, that there is a profound moral difference between the use of force for liberation and the use of force for conquest. You were here to liberate, not to conquer, and so you and those others did not doubt your cause, and you were right not to doubt. You all knew that some things are worth dying for. One's country is worth dying for, and democracy is worth dying for, but for now, particularly today, it is good and fitting to renew our commitment to each other, to our freedom, and to the alliance that protects it. We're bound today by what bound us 40 years ago, the same loyalties, traditions, and beliefs. We're bound by reality. The strength of America's allies is vital to the United States, and the American security guarantee is essential to the continued freedom of Europe's democracies. We were with you then, we're with you now. Your hopes are our hopes, and your destiny is our destiny. Here in this place, where the West held together, let us make a vow to our dead. Let us show them by our actions that we understand what they died for. Let our actions say to them the words for which Matthew Ridgway listened: I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. Strengthened by their courage, heartened by their value, and borne by their memory, let us continue to stand for the ideals for which they lived and died.
Hey, welcome back to the Liberty Podcast. You found us once again in our warm and welcoming studio beneath the pines. You know, we're presented to you by Proven Arms and Outfitters. They are the suppliers of rifles and pistols and tactical gear, everything you need to be a rockin' patriot. Check them out at ProvenOutfitters.com. And another product I'd like to draw to your attention right here over my shoulder, that beautiful made in the USA patriotic polo, just in time for Independence Day festivities coming up in about 1 month, go to theflagshirt.com. There you will find an array of merchandise. For you Democrats, that means a lot. Polos, t-shirts, ball caps, and other merchandise. And by the way, the Flag Shirt founders are huge supporters of the MAGA movement, and they deserve a second look from you all heading into this Independence Day season. Well, this is another Liberty podcast, but this one on a momentous day, ladies and gentlemen. We record the podcast, of course, today, 6 January, on this, the 80th anniversary of the triumph of American Allied forces who overcame German artillery and insurmountable odds on the north coast of France, on the beaches of Normandy. If you have looked out on those tranquil beaches, as I have, it changes you forever. Because today they are just beaches where families stroll and dogs chase balls and the waves dance along the shores. Tranquility that was assured so long ago by the blood of young boys from small-town America. Today, June 6th, also is a momentous day because we are once again witnessing the clash of the cancerous left that has metastasized within our institutions and universities, and in our legal system and in our courts. A left motivated by evil and godlessness against Americans who are standing our ground and standing proudly in the breach. We are seeing the collapse in Georgia of another vicious attempt to wage lawfare against Donald Trump's quest for re-election as president and against the ascendancy of the MAGA majorities across the nation. Just 24 hours ago, a Georgia appeals court halted the election subversion conspiracy case against Donald Trump and his co-defendants. This is a massive victory for the former president seeking to push further legal issues, all of them manufactured, by the way, until March of 2025. How about that? The court said the case will be on hold until a panel of judges rules on whether Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis should be disqualified. And I think she will be. And I think she knows it, even as we speak. Well, folks, today we confront another compromised judge and another inevitable decision that appears at the moment to be working against us. This one in the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in the D.C. swamp. U.S. District Judge Carl J. Nichols. Believe it or not, a Trump appointee. How'd that happen? Today he sentenced MAGA Field General Stephen K. Bannon to a 4-month prison sentence beginning in July. This is an attempt to silence Bannon's voice in the months leading to Election Day 2024. It will fail. And Bannon will appeal to the Supreme Court between now and July 1. And you can be assured of one thing, folks, it ain't over. But here's what happened. A federal judge, June 6th, ordered Trump political advisor and right-wing podcaster, he's a little more than a podcaster, Stephen K. Bannon, to report to prison by July 1 to begin serving a 4-month prison term for contempt of Congress after an appeals court upheld his conviction. Federal prosecutors had asked the judge to lift the hold on his sentence, arguing that there was no substantial legal questions remaining over Bannon's 2-count conviction for refusing to provide documents or testimony to a House subcommittee probing January 6, 2021, a sham House subcommittee that called no members of the House minority to participate in it. A panel of the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals rejected Bannon's appeal on all grounds just last month, and he was summoned into the D.C. courtroom today. Said Judge Nichols, quote, "I don't believe that the original basis for my stay of Mr. Bannon's sentence exists any longer. I no longer consider that his appeal raises substantial questions of law and of a kind likely to reverse his conviction." But you know what? Bannon has got one badass attorney in David Schoen, who came outside of the courtroom after the sentence and said this. He reminded us, quote, that this case raises dynamic separation of powers issues. The president has the authority to invoke executive privilege. Courts have spoken clearly about this. This decision has it all wrong in many ways. When executive privilege is invoked, you may not issue a subpoena to a presidential surrogate, such as Bannon, such as Peter Navarro, who is, even as we speak, serving a sentence in a Miami prison, soon to be completed, thankfully. The January 6th committee was created in violation of House rules, reminds Bannon's attorney. He calls on House Speaker Mike Johnson to immediately convene what is known as the BLAG. The BLAG speaks for the House in legal matters. Now, what is this BLAG? It is the Bipartisan Legal Advisory Group. They come up with some awfully tired or stretched or contrived acronyms in D.C., don't they? But focus on what it's really called, the Bipartisan Legal Advisory Group. It is an established Office of General Counsel for the purpose of providing legal assistance and representation to the House. Why this wasn't enacted months ago, I don't know. Legal assistance and representation shall be provided without regard to political affiliation. The Speaker, in this case Mike Johnson, shall appoint and set the annual rate of pay for employees of the Office of General Counsel, which shall then function pursuant to the direction of the Speaker. This established bipartisan legal advisory group is composed of the Speaker and the majority and minority leaderships. That would be the whip and the like. Unless otherwise provided by the House, the bipartisan legal advisory group speaks for and articulates the institutional position of the House in all litigation matters. So what Bannon's attorney is just saying is use the levers of power that you have at your authority to protect these people from being trampled on by this sham subcommittee and these subsequent judges who are doing everything they can think of to go after Trump's loyalists and put them in prison, which is what they do in third world countries. They actually do it in some rather advanced countries too. And we're right up there with them now. Steve Bannon, of course, also would not walk away without defending himself. And he said, all of this is about one thing, he reminded us, shutting down the MAGA movement and grassroots conservatives, shutting it all down. There is nothing that can shut me up, Bannon said. There is not a prison or a jail built that can ever shut me up. We're going to win in the Supreme Court, and more importantly, we are going to win on November 5th in an amazing landslide. By the way, it's end quote. That was Mr. Bannon, and then he went back to work. Worth noting, there have been to date more than a dozen Democrats who have ignored similar congressional subpoenas to appear before congressional committees, including sitting Attorney General Merrick Garland and former Obama Attorney General Eric Holder. They were not only punished, they weren't even scolded. A couple of little tidbits of note on this Judge Nichols, who ruled against Bannon today and sentenced him to 4 months in prison, which will take him right up to a prison sentence that ends about 3 days before Election Day, November 5th. Coincidence? This Nichols was once a Department of Justice Deputy Associate Attorney General and a Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Civil Division for 4 years. Well, we know now that the DOJ is not exactly a collection of choir boys, it's a very corrupt organization. It spawned Judge Carl Nichols. But here's one that I really wonder about. Between 1997 and 1998, Judge Carl Nichols was a law clerk to Supreme Court Justice of the United States, Clarence Thomas, who has become the target of the left, the one man on the Supreme Court they want to bring down. And you just have to wonder if Judge Nichols has been a bit compromised by his past connection as a law clerk to Judge Clarence Thomas. I don't think you really have to wonder anymore, do you? We know. We know how easily these people are corrupted, even when they wear the robe. But now we need to step back and think about what we witnessed today. The images coming out of Normandy on the 80th anniversary of D-Day, or as Joe Biden calls it, Z-Day, because you could tell he was longing to get a few Z's amid the jet lag. Can you imagine jet lag combined with permanent brain fog? You almost could feel sorry for Biden. Well, almost. Today we saw a collection of D-Day veterans, men in their late 90s, a few more than 100 years old, stoic, restraining emotion, marveling no doubt that they are still here on this earth to honor the memory of their fallen patriots, literally young men who fell lifeless at their sides amid a hail of bullets on that June morning 80 years ago. And as President Reagan reminded us in his poignant speech of June 1984, they fell because they knew what they were fighting for. But while they remain worthy of our respect and abiding gratitude, and that they do, the men of Normandy 1944 today are wondering aloud if the United States in 2024 remains worthy of their sacrifice. That's a heartbreaking statement. This was the troubling message delivered by 96-year-old Ronald Rondo Scharf, who traveled to Normandy this year for the ceremony, though he defended liberty in World War II on the other side of the world at Iwo Jima. He was 16. He lied about his age to serve his country. He lied about his age to serve his country at 16 years old. Now, I want you to listen to the words of Rondo Scharf. Let's listen.
All right, so I want to introduce you to another World War II veteran who joined us here in Normandy today. And obviously, this is the 80th anniversary. His name is Rondo Scharf. And he lied about his age to join the military. He was 16 years old, and he ended up fighting at that age on Iwo Jima. He's now 4 months shy of 97. He says he knows how lucky he is to be here today. You know, when you're in this environment and you're with so many other veterans, does it take you back, all of you? And how do you relate to each other? How does it feel to see other people who understand your history?
Well, the only ones you get along with or that can understand you is if you're a combat vet. Like I've got PTSD, I've had it all my life, and it'll never go away till you're gone. And, you know, as long as the people remember that the vets are still around, the guys feel good about it. You know, because there's some of the memories are good, some are bad, some are happy, some are sad. And so, I mean, that's all part of life.
You know, Rondo, we've talked to you before, and a lot of our viewers know your story. But for those who don't, you signed up at 16. You broke the rules to get in early. Why did you do that?
Well, you know, I didn't care much for high school. Put in a couple of weeks in high school, went down, we tried to get in all the different services. Yeah. We had some Linko bleach, and we tried messing with our birth certificates to make them older. Didn't work out. The guy says, hey, come back in a couple of years, kid. Yeah. So my sister gets married, and I spared a bunch of baptismal certificates off the altar. And
you stole baptismal certificates at your sister's wedding?
Yeah. It was like a birth certificate.
Yeah.
You can make it any age you wanted.
Right.
And I told Mom and Dad, I says, they won't be sending me overseas till I'm probably 18 or 19 or something. 3 months, I was gone. So,
at 16?
Yeah, at 16.
So at 16, you were the coxswain on a Higgins boat that was going onto the beach at Iwo.
Right, LCBP. Yeah.
And what happened there?
Well, 9 o'clock in the morning was a bright sunny day. I had it full throttle with the engine, and we hit something. I went over the top of the wheel, split open my sternum, busted my nose, knocked some teeth out, and I couldn't breathe. And I kept telling myself, I'm 16, I can't be having a heart attack. And that's what I thought I was having, a heart attack. But by the time I ended up on the tank deck down below me, and they pulled me up on the beach and wait for the medics to come and work you over, get some adrenaline, and that pretty much took care of that. The first time I got real close to a person that was dead, they dragged me through this one guy who was cut in half, and I'm talking to myself, I'm saying, what the hell am I doing here, you know, get me through this. It's all history, and I'm glad I'm here. I feel bad about not having some of my buddies with me, because the one time I was at the cemetery and I was looking for a couple of my bros that I lost. And I looked down, I see him, Nick DiGiacomo and Frank Salata, a couple of spaghetti benders, Italian guys. And I said, you know, guys, I says, I've had a chance to raise a family, enjoy life. Why don't I go down there and you guys come up? And I'm just like I'm talking to you right now. I'm looking down at him, and Frank was kind of a heavy-set guy. I says, yeah, I says, you guys come up and enjoy a little bit of life, and I'll go back down there, but don't take anything over 72 hours. I says, I want to come back up. So it's realistic. I dream of that an awful lot, just that way. But your dreams are something, you know, your mind, your eyes take the picture of the world, your mind kind of devours it, and the rest of it, you're just lucky to be where you're at today. And you feel sorry for my brothers who can't be here today.
God bless them. And you help other people remember their service, and I know that's really important to you. You talk very openly about the struggles that you had with PTSD. When you came back from the war, that didn't have a name like it does now.
No, it was battle fatigue.
Yeah.
Yeah, combat fatigue. Well, I had a buddy, Mel Waldo, and we were real close. And they'd send him down to Danville, Illinois. He says, Rondo, I don't want to go down there. They put him in a straitjacket and shock him. He lasted about 2 years, and that was the end of him. But I mean, you know, it's stuff like that that doesn't go away. It sticks in your brain. You know, people might think you're a little squirrely when you talk about the guys coming back up from the grave, but it's realistic to me. And I'm just lucky. Everybody, you know, a lot of the guys weren't as lucky as I was. And I appreciate every day of it. And I honor all the guys that I'm from the Pacific Theater, but I'm the ETO. I'm just honoring my brothers over here. And hopefully it means something to them. I'll get through to them.
Let me ask you one last question. When you're here with all of these brothers and people who experienced the war as you did, and also the subsequent wars in Korea and Vietnam, what do you think about the state of our country today? How do you feel about the country that you worked so hard to stay free, to keep free?
The real truth?
Yeah.
I feel like a foreigner in my own country lots of times, and I don't like it. It makes my heart real heavy. And I just hope we can pull out of this. There's too much Hollywood going on in Washington all the time. The important subjects they don't cover. So the thing is, I hope that I hope all the guys will rally up and we'll go back and straighten it all out.
Do you think 16-year-olds would fake their age as you did in order to go off and fight for the country today? 16-year-olds today?
No, I don't think so. It was a different generation. Each generation is a little bit different. And I think that all the generations are great, but I think some of the ones they got now are a little lazy. And I think they got to show more pride in their country than they do. I don't like to see that where they'll take a flag and drape it around them or put it on top of a Jeep or something like that. You got to respect your flag. That's your country. And I'm just hoping I never run into anything where somebody's trying to burn the flag, because I'll stop them right now.
Well, I want to thank you for your service to this country, your bravery, your courage, your spirit, which is incredible, and you inspire me every time we talk. So I'm just grateful to call you my friend, Rondo.
Oh, same here, girl. You're the greatest on TV.
Thank you.
You're the greatest going.
Thank you so much.
Cuter than hell.
Thank you. Stay in good health, okay?
Rondo went home after the war and went to work. He was a Chicago firefighter for 2 decades, and later he fought wildfires in his adopted home state of Montana. He never asked for anything but for the freedom to work, raise a family, and live out his American values. I wonder what Rondo was thinking as he watched Joe Biden hobble onto the stage today in France. Biden, a career Washington politician who never fought for anything other than the retention of his power, who never wore the uniform, who left American soldiers to die in Afghanistan during a cowardly withdrawal of U.S. military presence soon after Biden's regime captured the White House. What was going through Rondo's mind as he watched Biden trying to take a seat while his 90-year-old plus nonagerian and centenarians stood at attention? Here is just a part of what Biden said today, and I quote, "The price of unchecked tyranny is the blood of the young and the brave. Their generation, in their hour of trial, the Allied forces on D-Day did their duty. Now the question for us is, in our hour of trial, will we do ours?" End quote. Hats off to his speechwriter, fairly eloquent. But I have to ask, what trial is Biden talking about? The trial in New York to which he subjected Donald Trump? The trials of the people of Israel his administration abandons and issues orders to stop their war on Hamas terrorists? The trials of the people of Ukraine who must fight Russian troops while billions of dollars of American military aid disappears into a black hole? The trials of men and women in the United States crushed by Biden's deliberately imposed economic malaise? The trials that our children will face as slaves to a $35 trillion federal debt? The trials of citizens living in cities and towns overrun by illegal immigrants who have surged across our border undeterred? But instead of lamenting, let's ask a question. What can we do today? What can we do starting right now? For Americans who have watched the left's assault from the sidelines, from their parallel universes, it's long past time to come off those cozy sidelines. They can send all of Trump's surrogates to prison, but they can't stop armies of MAGA might assembling across the land. And guess what? We have it easy. We are not being asked to storm the beaches of Normandy, to deploy in faraway lands during the war on terror, separated from our families. Our task does not put us in harm's way, unless convincing a neighbor or a relative that Democrats are lying to them is too threatening for you, unless asking friends and fellow church congregants and co-workers to help register people to vote this fall, and then browbeating them until they do vote. You won't incur permanent disabilities and PTSD by writing letters to your local newspaper, by placing signs in your yards, distributing literature, or by reaching into your bank account and making a donation. Now let's turn to a couple of other pressing matters that cry out today. Anthony Fauci's testimony earlier this week. Have you ever watched a more arrogant, defiant little man who still contends that he is science and we are merely supplicants of his rule? He lied about everything during the pandemic, didn't he? He lied about social distancing, masking, school and office closures, canceled sports events and weddings. And then he ramped up the lies to pressure lawmakers and health officials so that there was only one narrative. Vaccines are safe and effective and should be mandatory. Those who refuse to be vaccinated with experimental mRNA technology must be condemned, unemployed, and cast out. That's what he said. So, knowing what we know now, what do we do to fight back? When do we exact our revenge? ASAP sounds about right to me. District attorneys and attorneys general need to file charges against Fauci and his former colleagues, like Francis Collins, director of the NIH, and that little scumbag Peter Daszak, who ran EcoHealth, which was the recipient of millions of dollars of federal grants authorized by Anthony Fauci and others. Dr. Ralph Barrick at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, who was the evil scientist behind gain-of-function lab tests that found their way to the Wuhan lab, from whence the Chinese bioweapon was leaked in late 2019 into 2020. Congressional hearings are inadequate. We know that lying before Congress is what the left does. The Faucis and other Biden field marshals, such as Alejandro Mayorkas, who has been AWOL protecting our southern border, Anthony Blinken, a secretary of altered state, and Merrick Garland, the corrupt sitting attorney general, who also went before Congress this week and defied and lied again and again. And then closer to home, there's also something we can do. We can call on elected officials in the state legislature to bring criminal charges against governors and health boards that betrayed us during the pandemic. I have asked our Moore County representatives in Raleigh to do just that. I have asked State Representative Neil Jackson and State Senator Tom McGinnis to bring charges against Governor Roy Cooper and his former health director Mandy Cohen and Attorney General Josh Stein. I did. These tyrants imposed pandemic restrictions that closed businesses permanently in some cases, drove up mental illness in children locked out of classrooms for years, and penalized military service members who declined to be jabbed by an experimental shot that Fauci himself now says had lousy long-term durability against COVID infection and recovery, when they could have simply been prescribed vitamin D and ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and recovered without the lingering damaging effects of these experimental jabs, especially in the young and the healthy. A couple of other points before we wrap this up. We have endured a slew of disappointments lately, we can admit that. As conservatives, as defenders of Judeo-Christian American values, it's been a choppy 2024 for us. A bit of melancholy seems to follow us. But we press on. We've endured Trump's guilt verdict, the indictment of 3 more election integrity warriors this week in Arizona, and today's desperate attempt to imprison Steve Bannon. But we're also learning that if we stay the course and keep moving forward, that eventually truth prevails. We are seeing it in the Hunter Biden gun possession trial in Delaware. While we might derive pleasure from watching Hunter sit through salacious testimony about his immoral, drug and sex-addicted life, the unexpected silver lining is that testimony is confirming all of these years later that the infamous Hunter Biden laptop from hell, you know, the one dismissed by the Biden regime as an instrument of Russian interference, claims that were defended by the corrupt mainstream media. But now we know that that laptop is as damning today as it should have been when first revealed by the New York Post. In fact, the Post's Miranda Devine is still around, the one who broke the original laptop story. And now she reports this, and it's beautiful. Quote, the silver MacBook Pro 13, covered in a clear plastic wrapper, was first publicly cited June 4 at 2:10 p.m. when it was carried across the Delaware courtroom by prosecutor Derek Hines to his first witness, FBI Special Agent Erica Jensen, who confirmed it was Hunter's laptop from the serial number on the back. Sitting at the bar table, Hunter was inscrutable behind salmon pink reading glasses as the laptop that threatens to put him in jail and politically scorch his father coasted serenely across the room. It's beautiful. 3 years and 8 months since you first heard it in the New York Post, Jensen said that the laptop was obtained by the FBI in 2019 with a subpoena from the Mac shop in Wilmington, Delaware, where it had been abandoned by Hunter. Poor Hunter. She said that investigators corroborated content on the laptop with Hunter's iCloud that they obtained from Apple with a subpoena, end quote, reported Miranda Devine. So, in light of this validation of the laptop, do you suppose Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes will ask Donald Trump to sit down for another interview to allow her to correct her statements during their 60 Minutes conversation back in 2020? You know, that's when Trump referenced the laptop as containing proof that the Bidens engaged in influence peddling to enrich themselves. And when Stahl firmly retorted, quote, we can't verify the authenticity of Hunter Biden's laptop, she said. Watch this.
You know, this is 60 Minutes, and we can't put on things we can't verify.
You won't put it on because it's bad for Biden.
We can't put on things we can't verify.
Leslie.
You know what you told me a long time ago when I asked why you keep saying fake in the media?
Yeah.
You said to me, I say that because I need to discredit you so that when you say negative things about me, no one will believe you.
I don't have to discredit you.
But that's what you told me.
You've discredited yourself.
You told me that.
Leslie, you've discredited yourself. When you say that you're not going to cover Biden, you're going to ask him what flavor ice cream he has, okay?
That's not
Instead
me.
of why did Hunter get $3.5 million from Moscow? Instead of why is an energy company paying your son $183,000 a month or whatever they're paying him, and he has no experience in energy. You know, you discredit yourself. I don't have to discredit you.
So this story about Hunter and his laptop, some repair shop found it. The source is Steve Bannon and Rudy Giuliani.
I don't know anything about that. I just know it's a laptop, and they haven't.
And you're making this one of the hottest, most important issues in your rallies.
It's a very important issue to find out whether or not a man's corrupt who's running for president, who's accepted money from China and from Ukraine and from Russia.
All these
I think
things
that's
have
an
been
important issue.
investigated and
It's
discredited.
incredible the way you can try and say this and sit there and look me in the eye and say it.
A Republican
He accepted
committee.
money, his family, from Russia, from Ukraine, from China, and from other places.
And a
His
Republican-
brother, who didn't have experience, became a big builder in Iraq without experience. Take a look at what's going on, Leslie. And then you say how that shouldn't be discussed.
I'm saying
It's the biggest scandal out there, Leslie, and you don't cover it.
because it can't be verified.
You want to talk
I'm
about
telling you.
insignificant things.
I'm telling you.
Of course it can be verified. Excuse me,
We
they
cannot
found the
verify.
laptop. Leslie,
It can't
Leslie.
be verified.
What can't be verified?
The laptop.
Why do you say?
Before we conclude this week's Liberty podcast, here's a research assignment for you. See what you find out about persistent measles outbreaks across the United States lately. And as you do your research, see if you find yourself thinking what crossed my mind. 4 months until early voting. Maybe too late for another COVID outbreak. The bird flu doesn't seem to be ramping up. But what could a measles outbreak do to this election season? Remember, the left never stops thinking about how to rig elections. Thanks for checking in on us here at the Liberty Podcast. And now this programming note. Next week, as we immerse ourselves in the U.S. Open here in Pinehurst, the podcast will take a break. Now, believe me, we won't stop monitoring the left's dangerous agenda, even while marveling as the world's best golfers stroll our famous fairways. So until next time, stay the course, stand in the breach, fight the fight, and we'll see you on another Liberty Podcast real soon. Thanks for joining us.
The Liberty Podcast is brought to you by Proven Arms and Outfitters, specializing in rifles, pistols, tactical gear, and more. Learn more at ProvenOutfitters.com.